He didn't even look uncomfortable when he said it, just stared across the desk and said, "You're just too expensive now." Like that explained everything. Like 18 years of work, commitment, and steady results could be reduced to a number on a spreadsheet. I didn't say much, just nodded. He offered a handshake. I didn't take it. The HR rep shifted awkwardly behind him, eyes flicking toward the clock. 4 minutes. That's how long it took to undo nearly 2 decades. I gathered my things in silence. No one met my eyes on the way out. No goodbyes. Just doors. Outside, I sat in my truck, engine off. Hands on the wheel, too expensive. That's all I was to them now. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. But something shifted. Quietly. Internally. Something hardened. And I knew then. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I started with them when the company was barely a warehouse and a dream. Back when the break room was just a coffee pot and a folding table, and we all worked double shifts because we believed in what we were building. I was the guy who stayed late when servers crashed at 2 a.m., the one who rebuilt their entire back-end infrastructure without asking for a promotion. When systems went down, they called me. When deals fell through, I patched what broke behind the scenes. I never asked for much, a decent paycheck, a little respect, and space to do my job. I trained fresh graduates, turned interns into engineers, some of the very people sitting in leadership meetings now. I gave them their first break. Over the years, I built automation pipelines, security protocols, product launch frameworks. I knew the legacy code because I wrote half of it. When compliance rules changed, I updated everything quietly before the lawyers ever called. I didn't chase recognition. I chased reliability. So when the new guy came in, the one with the buzzwords and the MBA smile, I didn't worry. I figured he'd settle in and see where the strength really lived. But I was wrong. To him, I wasn't experience. I was overhead. Too many gray hairs. Too much salary. Too quiet in meetings. And that's the problem with building quietly. They forget who made the walls stand in the first place. But I remembered, and that was going to matter. He came in wearing tailored suits and talking like a podcast. Words like agility, disruption, and value optimization flowed so naturally from his mouth you'd think they meant something. I gave it time. New leaders always need to rattle the cage a bit. But this was different. His first move was to flatten the hierarchy. In practice, that meant replacing anyone who'd been there long enough to remember the company's original mission. The engineers I'd mentored, gone. The operations lead who helped keep things smooth for a decade, pushed out, replaced with guys who had fresh degrees and no scars. "We're doing things differently now," he told the staff. "We're modernizing." And just like that, experience was repackaged as inefficiency. Meetings changed. Culture shifted. Performance became a game of optics. If you spoke confidently, even if you didn't understand the architecture, you rose quickly. I kept my head down, focused on keeping systems running, teams aligned, servers alive. I figured my work would speak for itself. But he didn't want legacy. He wanted legacy gone. He saw me as a relic, a reminder of a time when hard work and loyalty were enough, and men like him, they don't like reminders. They like clean slates. What I didn't say, what I didn't show, was that I already knew the game was changing, and I'd already started writing my own rules. It started with a calendar invite. No subject line. Just meeting with HR. I'd seen it before, for others. I knew what it meant. Still, I showed up on time. Sat across the table from him and the HR manager, who looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. He smiled like we were old friends, leaned forward with his elbows on the desk. "This isn't personal," he said. "You've done good work. But we're streamlining. The numbers just don't support keeping you on board." He didn't say thank you. Didn't even use my name until the final sentence. The HR rep slid a file across the table. No severance. Just a formality. I signed it. Outside, the office was quiet. No one made eye contact. A few people peeked up from their desks, then looked away. I walked out with a box and no words, but my silence wasn't surrender. It was step 1. They thought I just left, that I packed up my things, took my exit packet, and disappeared like an obedient relic. What they didn't know was that I'd been preparing for months. The writing was on the wall long before the meeting, the moment. The new leadership started pushing out veterans and rewriting our internal architecture without understanding it. I knew my time was ticking, so I documented. Quietly, thoroughly. I had designed our core infrastructure, built it from the ground up. The automated testing pipelines, the version control triggers, the real-time monitoring alerts. Those were mine. More importantly, the documentation lived in my private repositories, approved under my name, synced weekly to my own encrypted backups. They assumed they could cut me and keep everything running, but those systems weren't off the shelf. They were patched together over years, custom fixes for custom problems. And the redundancy layers? I never published those. Security keys, compliance protocols, password rotations. Logged, yes, but only. In places I controlled, I didn't sabotage anything. I didn't need to. I just stopped carrying the weight they never realized I held. And within days, the cracks would show. Not because I wanted to see them fail, but because I needed them to remember who had kept the roof from caving in all these years. And I was just getting started. I didn't vent. I didn't rant. I planned. The day after I was let go, I called Sam, a friend from college who now worked in corporate legal consulting. I told him what happened. I told him about the systems I built, the IP questions I'd flagged, the compliance logs I had quietly archived. He didn't tell me to sue. He told me to get organized, so I did. I compiled documentation, time-stamped versions of the work I owned, records of emails where I voiced concerns about vulnerabilities, audit trails no one ever followed up on. I flagged conflicts of interest, outdated licenses, and software patches that had never been applied. Then I opened a secure email and submitted an anonymous tip to their internal compliance hotline. Not revenge, just facts. Meanwhile, I wiped every trace of my access. No more admin rights, no leftover credentials, no surprise logins. I'd cleaned my fingerprints from the codebase entirely. They wanted me gone, so I made sure I was truly gone. But, in doing so, I exposed just how much I'd been covering without credit. This wasn't about burning bridges. It was about letting them discover what happens when you remove the quiet, competent foundation beneath their flashy new frame. And I knew it wouldn't take long, because when something breaks, they'll start calling, and I'll be ready, on my terms. It started with a late-night message from an old colleague. Systems crashed. They're scrambling. I didn't respond. A week later, their main deployment pipeline failed mid-release. Customers noticed. Tickets piled up. The fancy new engineers, they were good at presentations, not at rolling back a legacy stack when the alert system broke, and it had broken, because no one knew how it had been rigged to work around their outdated framework. I'd built those patches myself years ago, when budget cuts meant doing more with less. Then came the client delay. A product launch set for Tuesday pushed to Thursday, then indefinitely delayed. Investors were warned. The stock dipped. I watched quietly, sipping my coffee. I wasn't celebrating, but I wasn't surprised either. They'd removed the engine and expected the car to keep moving. The new CEO stood in front of the board and spun numbers, blamed market shifts, vendor issues. But someone asked the right question. Didn't he build those systems? Suddenly my name was being said again, in hushed tones, not praise. Not yet, but need, real need. You don't miss the light until it's gone. And when it's gone long enough, even the blind start searching for a switch. I waited, patient, still. They would come knocking. It came as a LinkedIn message first, polite, vague. Would you consider a short-term engagement to help us transition more smoothly? I let it sit unread for 2 days. Then came the email, direct from the CEO. We'd like to formally offer you a consulting contract to stabilize the architecture. Name your rate. So I did. Triple my old salary. No meetings. No management. I fix what I choose, when I choose. They agreed before lunch. I didn't ask for an apology. and he didn't offer one. But we both knew the truth. I wasn't returning as an employee. I was returning as their lifeline. I didn't plan to be part of the fallout. I just kept fixing what they broke, invoicing like clockwork, and keeping quiet. But the cracks kept widening and someone started digging. It was the compliance department, brought in quietly by the board after a series of missed deadlines and ballooning costs. One of my early reports had found its way to the right inbox, paired with a few internal emails from the CEO, some careless language about cutting the dead weight and burying risk. And suddenly, silence wasn't an option anymore. The audit came fast. I stayed out of it. Just another vendor. Helpful, neutral, professional. Then the CEO was gone. Official story, personal reasons. Unofficially, ethics violations, negligence, and intentional misrepresentation of company risk. When the new board chair asked if I wanted to stay on and rebuild long-term, I shook my head. I came to patch the holes, not to live in the house. I finished my final task, submitted the invoice, and walked away. No bitterness. No scene. Just quiet satisfaction that the truth held, and that sometimes the cleanest revenge is letting people collapse under their own decisions while you walk off with your hands clean. These days, I build things with my hands again. Hardwood, mortise joints, quiet tools in a quiet shop, no Slack notifications, no budgets to defend. I don't miss the meetings. I don't miss the performance reviews. I don't miss pretending that loyalty goes both ways in places it never did. The company still runs, different CEO now, different culture I hear, but I have no reason to look back. I wake up early, sip my coffee slow, and open the doors to sunlight and sawdust. Some people build power, others build peace. Turns out I was good at both. But now, I choose peace, and I sleep just fine.